with regards to this, I had never heard of it before. I mean, it was only made just last year, 2 years ago, so not quite very old at all. But apparently, the books are much older. Never heard of them though either. So yeah, I didn't expect much, honestly, because of the strangely generic title mainly. I didn't quite know it was scriptwritten by Guillermo del Toro. I've seen a couple of others from him in the past that were pretty interesting. So I think Pan's Labyrinth is by him. I think, unless I'm mistaken. That was obviously really good. Um, but yeah, this turned out to be interesting as well. Like that's it's always interesting. Horror is always a key to making a movie. It just differentiates between because most horror that does have creatures running after people, etc. And this did as well, but at least it had some sort of story behind it. I mean, and the way this Sarah operated is as if she was Naraku from Inuyasha. It's just like all these creatures are parts of her, and she sends them out, and she writes the stories for them. It's quite interesting for the very concept of the potency of writing. Really, it's this is that's I suppose I mean, in reality, writing isn't really that potent, but it's still. I mean, it's a metaphor, obviously. Interesting metaphor, I suppose. Um, yeah, and it's it was so it did try to elicit disgust a bit too much. Man, no, not too much, honestly. Yeah. I mean, there are many other movies that do that much more, that are worse at it, but it still did. It still did. With the spiders, the pimple, and with obviously the toenail, probably one of the worst. Although it wasn't really very obviously a toenail anyway. So the thing with the in the hospital there, that was the creepiest, I think. That thing, it was so different from all of the other creatures. It just smiled at him and then gave him some sort of hug. That was cool. I got to admit, um, the jungleman person was the weirdest, I suppose. Uh, Possibly not just weird. Let's just say keep it at that. You know. Um, Otherwise, so yeah, it's kind of interesting. It reminded me of well, first of all, it's sort of reminiscent of this other movie I watched and also commented on. It also has a somewhat a very much a generic title, Ghost Stories, I believe it's called. I don't know what to make of these generic sounding titles. Not just sounding, is it? Very generic. Like even orphan doesn't have such a. I mean, it's a generic word, generic noun, but it's not per se so generic, as to say, just scary story, ghost story and such. They're very, to be fair, kind of like a love story as well. There's literally a movie called Love Story, and as it happens, it's a good love story. So hey, if a movie promises you to be a love story or a scary story or a ghost story, then hey, I shouldn't, I guess, prejudge it. We'll see if indeed it is as it says it is, and if it is interesting from there on. You know, Ghost Story was interesting. I'm not sure if it was pluralized or just singular. Yeah, it was interesting. It was psychological. Um, this not so much. Not so psychological. It is still interesting though. The way it happened, also reminiscent of Skeleton Key, right? Which I've also commented on. um, because voodoo was mentioned in this movie. In the other movie, it was hoodoo, though, which is slightly different, but it's still reminiscent. You know, it has a similar sort of style. It was also about the past, except in this movie, it was mainly younger people who were the protagonists, and the skeleton kid was mainly older people, and it was still supernatural. So I mean, still, and in fact, much more subtle, and in a way, more of a mind twister than this one. But still like this one. I mean, it's not like it doesn't end though too complexly. It just ends sort of like many horror movies end. I mean, horror movies, you can either do this, you appease the ghost, or of course you defeat them. So it went with the former. Yeah, still interesting though. I got to admit. Um, the way it all happened, the bit with the scarecrow, yeah, was quite interesting as well. The thing with the never-ending passages, the eternal labyrinths that also happened in the hospital. I don't think it happened anywhere else, but those cornfields and hospitals. And of course, cornfields is also reminiscent of um, uh, yeah, it's called Children of the Corn, isn't it? I can't believe I really forgot it. Yeah, Stephen King's. Yeah, so that's completely different. But what was it again? The one who hides behind the no, was that it? No, I forgot. Much more simplistic story, so I got to admit there. So I prefer this one. But yeah, I don't think so. The way it ended with Ramon was stupid. That's certainly stupid. Didn't say it explicitly, but it was stupid. Certainly, you know, no idea why he should have just given in, But otherwise, yeah, apparently there's a sequel that's going to be released at some point in the future. It's being made currently. Currently, this is the problem. I prefer to watch movies that already have sequels out. So in other words, story finished. I just watch them all, so I don't need to wait years. But it's sort of difficult to continually look up information about a certain movie just to see if there's a sequel planned, etc. It's annoying, so often I don't do it, but sometimes when I have an inkling that there are sequels, of course, sometimes there's an entire series behind a single movie, so whether you want to do something like recently I decided to just not go into Hunger Games again. I mean, I watched the first movie some time ago, a long time ago, but I don't think I've watched the second, and I haven't watched. I think there's a third and fourth. Apparently now they're going to do a prequel or something about Katniss. So I'm just going to wait for it. Yeah, and that's a certainty. When it comes to one sequel at least, I don't know, maybe more than one sequel is planned for this. Who knows? So either way, I mean, I'm not just regretting it. But sometimes I do end up going into huge series like Mallrats, which has a very huge series behind it, and it's still being made currently. So I'm continually made for a few decades now. But I just thought that just leave it there for now, on the shelf. Yeah, why not? But yeah, it's fine. Really, I think mostly. I don't know. Then I guess if I'm ever going to watch sequels, I'll just decide then whether I need to rewatch this or not, or I'll probably remember, what happens, or I'll just read the plot summary and so I don't know why. Yeah, the problem is that once I watched do a sequel after months, many months, or after watching the original. And of course, it's quite a complex story, so it's sort of my fault for not realizing that, and then one seriously needs to rewatch everything. But it's only really not really many stories, and I like that. This though, uh, it's a bit moderately complex, but not really very complex. Yeah, ever so moderately. So I don't know. We'll see later if I need to rewatch it or not. But it was interesting as it was. Yeah, I can say it wasn't.